I do want to thank the ranking member for allowing me to go, and he and I share a very big priority, which is making sure that our port infrastructure continues to see improvement. And so I wanted to ask you, Mr. Janikin, about the National Strategic Freight and Highway Grant Program. And obviously, I've been very involved in this program along with many of my colleagues, both in getting it originally focused on from a national priority perspective, and then in working to get the $4.6 billion in dedicated funding over the next 5 years. So wanted to know whether you had a maritime strategy for accessing those resources, and what are you doing to make sure that both West Coast ports, which already have deep harbors and connected railways, see some of that revenue, and also what are you thinking about as far as small ports, because there's so much economic activity in the Asian markets, there's so many partnerships. And again, we might be the state and the ports on the coast, but I guarantee you what's moving through there is a lot of Midwest product, and it's all about making it cost competitive and effective with our system juxtaposed to, say, Canadian or other avenues. So what are your thoughts in prioritizing maritime projects?
Senator, thank you for the question, and I'll try to keep my answer as concise as I can. As you know, the Department of Transportation has gone out with a notice of available funding opportunity specifically for this year's $800 million, which is the first tranche of the FAST Act money to be able to support the freight program. The good part is we've been very engaged with the department to ensure that ports are included in that notice of available funding. The department also established the Build American Transportation Investment Center. We refer to it as BATIC. It's a one-stop shop for all ports of all sizes, and I think that's a critical component in that. In fact, my staff who works in the intermodal development actually reaches out to small ports. I have gateway offices located around the country. We're engaged. They actually physically meet with the ports, and I also go out and do these port talks as well. In fact, I have one scheduled in 2 weeks in Cincinnati to be able to support the inland river and waterway system. As we look at the requirements, one of the things that we've noticed, and it's actually included in our plan as part of funding for the strong ports in our President's budget for fiscal year 17, is we want to make sure that we recognize, especially for small ports, they typically do not have finance planners. They do not have what I would call all the necessities to be able to meet investment grade projects, to be able to build out their infrastructure, to be able to improve their efficiency, their productivity, or their safety. And so we are proposing that in our budget to be able to allow us to extend about 15 grants and about $200,000 apiece to make sure that we can get that investment grade. So that's how we do that. But the combination of all these things, the fact that the ports are included for the first time, and we appreciate the support of Congress to be able to make that happen, but we also have a formula funding program that supports freight as well, and ports are also involved there. With regards to the West Coast versus East Coast, we haven't really prioritized one coast versus the other. We recognize there's need across the entire port community for infrastructure improvements, and we know that a lot of our ports aren't prepared for the vessels and the sizes of those vessels that are calling on our ports today. And so we have a lot of work to do. In fact, yesterday at the Port of Baltimore, at the Trade Point Atlantic, we convened a roundtable with labor, with shippers, with railroads, and it included 3 cabinet secretaries, Secretary Fox of Transportation, Secretary Pritzker of Commerce, and also Secretary Perez of Labor. We had Senator Cardin there and several folks from the Maryland delegation, so we can have this dialogue specifically at the request of the administration to have this meeting to make sure we're focused on ports and port infrastructure.
Well, I appreciate that. I can guarantee you when we were looking at this legislation, ports were a cornerstone. Not that other projects can't qualify, and we definitely think they do, but I like to say our economic strategy in Washington State is ports are us. That's how many ports we have, and that's how critical they are. But often, like in telecom, it's this last mile from the highway to the port entrance that is heavily congested, non-invested in, and literally you can get in incredible speed, across the country, but then sit right at that barrier outside of some of our ports. So I hope that we'll look at those kinds of projects as a way to speed up that activity. For us, Prince Rupert in Canada is always a competitive port, and we know that people can go other places. And the good news is that we want to continue to just promote U.S. product by saying that we can get it to its foreign destination in a timely fashion. And So I appreciate your work on that. And again, to the ranking member, thank you.